Hey, boys and girls, Mr. Kurtziel here. I hope you had a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Hope you're able to get out, do some things with the family, and have some fun. Today, we're going to continue our work with working with equivalent fractions. And as a reminder, an equivalent fraction means two fractions that are equal to each other. In other words, they take up the same amount of space. Last week, we had worked on various different ways of finding equivalent fractions. One of them was by drawing a model. So why don't we look at a model and make sure we understand and remember how to do that. So here we are looking at the fraction of 1/2. To make an equivalent fraction using this model, I could simply draw a line through the center. And you'll notice that the whole is still taking up the same amount of space, but instead of me having two halves, two equal parts of that whole shape, I now have four. That becomes my new denominator. And instead of having one part that's shaded in, I now have two of the four that are shaded in. So that's an equivalent fraction. 1/2 equals 2/4. We're going to learn how to use multiplication to help us find equivalent fractions today. And I'm going to keep this same model up here. And this is a pretty cool trick to find an equivalent fraction. So I'm still going to take 1/2. When we use multiplication to find an equivalent fraction, the trick is to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. It doesn't matter what the number is. In this case, I'm going to choose the number 2. So I'm going to take 1/2 and I'll multiply 1 times 2 and 2 times 2. See how these are the same numbers right here? The 2 and the 2? All right, so 1 times 2 gives me 2. 2 times 2 gives me 4. Here we could see that we came up with an equivalent fraction using multiplication instead of using a model. All right, we're going to try another one. And this is actually a pretty neat trick. What you have to remember, the biggest trick to remember is you have to multiply by the numerator and the denominator have to be multiplied by the same number. So let's take 2/6. All right. So the reason we multiply by the same number is you're adding, so let me rephrase that. You are increasing your numerator and denominator by the same amount, right? In this case, I'm doubling them, right? I'm multiplying by 2. So 2 times 2 will give me 4. 6 times 2 will give me 12. So 2/6 is equivalent or equal to 4/12. Now, I've been using the number 2 a lot. It doesn't always have to be the number 2. Let's take 2/3, the fraction 2/3, and think of a number that we can multiply it by. Now, I can't multiply by 1 because that'll give me the same exact number. But let's say I just decided to multiply by 3. Now, I can do that because I used 3 to multiply both the numerator and denominator. So 2 times 3 is going to give me 6. And 3 times 3 is going to give me 9. All right, and that again will be an equivalent or equal fraction. One more. Okay, I'm going to go back to 1/2 for a second. And I'm going to multiply it again by 2. And we know from earlier in this session that 1/2 equals 2/4. But what if I wanted to multiply that by 2 again? 2 times 2 would give me 4. 4 times 2 would give me 8. So that means that 1/2 is equal or equivalent to 2/4. And that is equivalent to 4/8. They are all equal. And if we draw a model, again, we're not using models for the examples we're doing here, but if we chose to, just to prove our point, Here's our 1/2. Here's our 2/4. And here's our 4/8. You'll notice I didn't change anything. I didn't shade anything else in. I just broke them in to smaller parts. All right, so I hope this makes sense. I hope using multiplication to help you find an equivalent fraction is a strategy that you'll be able to use. It is something you will absolutely be working on today in your student assignment. And of course, we have a quiz coming up at the end of the year, which is going to be one of our last ones, which is pretty cool. One of our last math quizzes coming up. We want to make sure you can use all the strategies that are being taught. Just to make sure, let's give you one more real fast. I know I'm driving you crazy. Sorry. I'm going to say 3/4. I'm going to give you a second to think, what would I do? So what do I do to find an equivalent fraction using multiplication? All right, can I multiply 2 times 3? Can I do that? No way. Automatically, you should have said, Mr. Kurzweil, you're crazy. You have to multiply the same number, the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So if I said 3 times 2 and 4 times 2, can I do that? I sure can, because the 2 and 2 are both being multiplied, are being used to multiply. Hopefully, you came up with a fraction of 6/8 as an equivalent fraction. So, boys and girls, I hope this helped out. This is a strategy I found very useful when I was in school. So, whenever I got stuck or I didn't understand a model I was using or some other strategy, I would go back and check my work by actually using multiplication to find if they're equivalent. All right, boys and girls, you have a great day. I didn't give you too much work here for student work, all right, but I do want you to do the best you can, pay attention on it, and you guys keep being rock stars. Guys, take